Oi, oi, all right, how's it going? I'm Grant, this is Doodle Review, and today we're going to do a worst to best of the various side projects coming out of the massive band that is Queens of the Stone Age. Now, if you know anything about this band, you'll know that the extended family goes and goes and goes and goes, and the members, and not just Josh Homme, have done so many different things. So because of that, I had to set up some rules to make this kind of an achievable goal. So here they are. The first is that this is a ranking of the side projects of the current lineup of the band, which is Homme, Troy Van Leeuwen, Mikey Shoes, Dean Fertitta, and John Theodore. 2. I am only counting projects where one of those guys is a core member, i.e. if they aren't around, the band doesn't do anything. And controversially, this means I'm excluding projects like Eagles of Death Metal and Post-Bop Depression. The third rule is I'm only counting projects that were started while that member was actually in Queens. So that means there's no Caius, there's no A Perfect Circle or Failure for Troy or Mars Volta for John. Both would have been excluded for number 2 anyway. So okay, let's get started. At number 12, we're kicking off with Enemy. This is Queen's guitar maestro Troy Van Leeuwen's solo project. He released one album under this banner in 2005 called Hooray for Dark Matter. I've actually done a very long form review of this record, which I've linked in the description below, but to give you the cliff notes, this is the perfect distillation of Troy's career up until this point. It has the alt rock vibes of A Perfect Circle, the space rock of Failure, some electronic trip hop production from his days as an engineer, and then the rock and roll of Queens. What lets it down is sadly some very lackluster lyrics, vocals, and melodies. Troy's got a cool voice, but yeah, it just doesn't come together. You should check out the songs Target and The Treatment. Next, I'm going to put Glue in at number 11. Glue is the completely solo project of Mikey Shoes, which came out last year in 2022. It's actually pretty interesting, taking Schumann's extremely melodic sensibility and applying it to a kind of lo-fi bedroom rap track. Yep, you heard that right. This is kind of a rap project. He's actually pretty good, but is a little jarring. Check out the tracks My Demons and Cold Sweat. I've actually put all of these in a playlist, by the way, and you can find it below, so check them out on Spotify. At number 10, we're going to put the project Life Coach featuring John Theodore. Now, I'm kind of breaking my own rules here because this project did exist before Theodore joined, but I really wanted to make sure he had a decent presence in this list, so here it is. This is one of those albums that I reviewed in full, so check it out if you're interested. But Alpha Waves, the album Theodore played on, is a driving krautrock, psychedelic rock freakout album. At least half of it is. The other half actually sounds like new age music that you would kind of associate with the name Life Coach. The tracks where there are drums, though, they go hard as hell. Check out Alpha Waves, the title track, and Mind's Eye for some massive 70s Bonham-esque drumming from Theodore. Number 9, we're going with Tropical Goth Club, which is actually the second solo project from Queen's synth, keyboard, guitar man, Dean Fertitta. And over the years, I've come to appreciate Fertitta's blunt, stabby attack on both rhythm and lead guitar. This trademark is often what makes him a good foil to meandering players like Jack White or Josh Homme. And on one hand, it's great to hear this style on full display without compromise. Songs like the dynamic Where There Is Water or Low Era Bowie of Uniform Looks offer some seriously cool guitar riffs and arrangements, for example. However, on the other hand, Fertitta's vocals and overall top-line melody composition really lack the X factor demonstrated by his other writing partners. Infernal Inside and Needles, for instance, really struggle with unimaginative vocal lines and sometimes a lack of tonality. That being said, this still is a pretty great project, and I'd recommend checking out Uniform Looks and Wheels Within Wheels. Coming in at number 8, I'm following it up with actually another Dino project, this time his first solo release, Hello Equals Fire, and I've put this one ahead of Goth Club because this record, perhaps coming off some more recent work with the Raconteurs and with that band's Brendan Benson collaborating on a few tunes here, there is a lot more melody held within the vocals. The album's a little less riffy than the Goth Club, but What it lacks in that area, it makes up for in very Beatlesy songcraft. I would check out the tracks Certain Circles and She's Mine in Sorrow. So at number 7, we're going to put in another Troy project, Gone Is Gone. This is actually a bit of an alternative rock fan's wet dream. It features our boy Troy from Queens on guitar, Troy Sanders from Mastodon on bass and lead vocals, and Tony Hajar of At the Drive-In on the drums. It's alternative metal meets space rock, meets some elements of trip hop. They've released 3 albums in quite a short amount of time, and while they can be a little long and a bit patchy with a bit too much ethereal head up arse sounding stuff, I actually think this is overall quite an underrated project with some cool sound design, real variety and some occasionally banging riffs. I think fans of A Perfect Circle in particular would get on well with this project. I would check out the tracks Violescent and Gift. So continuing on the Troy theme, we're following up at number 6 with this garage rock band Sweethead. Sweethead is Troy and Eddie Nappy, who worked together on the Enemy project with the sultry Serena Sims, who would ultimately become Troy's wife, on vocals. Their first album in particular is a garage rock banger. It's not far off the Enemy project, but having dropped some of the dead weight of the alt rock trip hop noodling, pairing it back to a rough and ready garage band and pairing it with Sims' amazing vocals. The first album is gritty, sexy and fun. The second album goes in a bit more of a new wave electronic direction, and I'm not as fond of that, but it's still worth hunting down. Sadly, their first record, you can't find it on streaming, but if you can, you should definitely hunt out and check out the songs The Sting and PIG. We're gonna get One Day as a Lion at number 5. This project might be a bit of a surprise to some people. It is the collaboration between John Theodore and Zach De La Rocca of Rage Against the Machine. So, interesting fact here. After the disbanding of Rage, frontman Zach De La Rocca actually kind of wandered trying to figure out his next move for ages. He even worked on a whole solo album with Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails producing it. Because according to Reznor, the material either sounded too much like Rage or not enough. The whole project was basically shelved. But in 2008, he paired up with John Theodore to create a band whose music had the urgency of Rage but was a little more sparse and darker in tone. The primary instruments were a Rhodes piano distorted like to the max, and Theodore's pummeling drums, and of course, De La Rocca's visceral verses. Sadly, this project only put out 1 EP. A whole album was promised but never materialized. I would definitely recommend checking this album out, with particular focus on the tracks One Day as a Lion and Last Letter. So, at number 4, we're getting to Josh Homme, the mythical Josh Homme project Desert Sessions. So there's a lot of lore surrounding this project, but the cliff notes are that kind of Homme led a bunch of musicians from the desert rock scene on a drug-fueled 3-day recording session at Rancho de la Luna, where they never slept and just recorded, and it spawned the first 2 volumes of this project. There are now 6 records split into 12 volumes across the project, with the most recent dropping just recently in 2009. It's become quite expansive, but that initial record serves as quite a good bridge sound-wise between the end of Caius and the start of Queens of the Stone Age. Volumes 3 to 6 had moments of brilliance among quite a lot of chaos. A lot of Queen songs actually got road tested on this series, so Avon, Monster in the Parasol, Millionaire, Hanging Tree, In My Head and Make It With You all came from these albums. I also think you can kind of hear the genesis of the No One Knows riff on the track Cold Sore Superstar from volume 7. Among those records were also some off-the-cuff kind of joke tracks, and for instance, Eagles of Death Metal originally started on volume 4, where they took the joke quite literally putting metally growls over Rolling Stones-esque grooves. And then from volume 7 onwards, the album instead turned a little more serious with more focused songs than just jams, and I think 7 and 8 might be my favourite, closely followed by 9 and 10. I really think you should check out the songs The Idiot's Guide and Holy Dime. Okay, so number 3, I woke up and chose chaos with this. This is where I'm placing Them Crooked Vultures. the fact that you might be screaming at me right now proves my point. This album doesn't need any more attention. It's Josh Homme, Alan Johannes, Dave Grohl and John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin, for fuck's sake. If you don't know about this album, you should, and it's great. I actually did a whole deep dive on this album, reliving my excitement of this release, which you can find in the link below. But you know, as far as I'm concerned, this album and this band are legendary. It's probably the best album out of everything released here, but we're kind of ranking this by total body of work, and these guys just have the one record for now. Anyway, fingers crossed. Hopefully we hear more from them one day. I'm gonna say you should check out Nobody Loves Me and Highway 1 from this project, but it's all awesome. Okay, so naturally our next pick gets labelled as a Jack White project more than Dean from Queens, but the fact is he's a huge part of it. So at number 2, it's The Dead Weather. This is a project that brings together Dino on keys and guitar and keys, Jack Lawrence of the Raconteurs on bass, Jack White on drums and Alison Mosshart of the Kills on vocals. This is a great rock band, kind of based in the blues, and I think as such people assume Jack White is responsible for the songwriting, but I think once you get attuned to Dean Fertita's playing style, his super blunt economic style of riff making, I think you can really hear how much he brings to the table. Mosshart's vocals are incredible, Lawrence's bass is just non-stop bass face inducing, and Jack White's drumming is super unique. It's a great project with 3 great albums at this point. I would check out 60 Feet Tall and Die by the Drop. That means in the number 1 spot I'm putting the Mikey Shoes project, Mini Mansions. It's why I didn't feel bad about dropping Glue so low, but for those that know, you already know, but Mini Mansions are a trio of Mikey Shoes on guitar and stand-up cocktail drum kit and vocals, Zach Dawes on bass and Tyler Parkford on keys and vocals. Together, they make a kind of Baroque pop, chamber pop, sometimes Beatlesy, sometimes Beach Boys-esque, like pop rock, and in later years a little more new wave. They are so unique and really should get much more love than they do. I think if you like the last Shadow Puppets or later era Arctic Monkeys, well, you probably already know about these guys because Zach Dawes and Tyler Parkford, I think, have both toured with that band at points, but I really recommend you check them out, particularly the songs Crime of the Season and, well, anything off the first and second record, but maybe let's go with the song Creeps. Check out the playlist link below to hear any of the tracks mentioned, as well as related videos reviewing some of these and more. But most importantly, let me know what you think, or just hurl some abuse and scream at me why Vultures should be number 1 in the comments below. And let me know what other videos I should do. Hope you've enjoyed it. Cheers.